G'day guys, welcome to Fat Rides. As you can see, we have the coupe up on the hoist and it's almost ready for that trial assembly I've been talking about. But I thought now might be a good opportunity to summarise the build so far. So let's take a look back at some of those modifications that got this coupe to this point. Okay, of course, it's going to be impossible to include everything from 80 plus episodes in a summary. But what I thought I'd do, I've just taken most of the major modification, the major work that was done, and tried to condense it all. So really hope you enjoy it. And don't forget, like, share, and subscribe. So it all started with me rebuilding a 74 XB coupe shell. I had everything completely disassembled, and using a replacement roof and rear quarters from other vehicles, it was a slow process of rebuilding the whole thing. Now I've had half a dozen other coupes prior to this project, and some I've modified, and with my GT I did an almost concours restoration, but that's not what I wanted with this car. I've always liked the idea of having modern day technology in an old school muscle car. I had watched Vechor and B is for Build on YouTube putting a 65 Mustang shell over a late model Mustang GT chassis / floor pan. But here in Australia we can't do that type of thing. I knew I had to retain all of the XB Falcon sills, torque boxes and chassis rails. I needed to find an engineer that was capable of overseeing my vision and have confidence in my abilities. So I started calling engineers. But man, did I get some varied responses. Everything from, what makes you think you're capable of doing a project like that? Are you a qualified welder? Are you a qualified panel beater? Or why don't you just put a Coyote engine in and upgrade the brakes? Anyway, after speaking to 4 or 5 different engineers, I finally spoke to Con at Carcraft Engineering, and he basically said, yeah, we can do it. What a relief. Not long after that, I decided on a name for the car, Retribution. So now this project's basically been given a green light. Blake gives me a hand to lift the Mustang body off the engine and gearbox, and also start measuring up and making a bit of a plan for how this whole thing's going to be going together. Jumping right in, I cut the Mustang body away from the floor pan and firewall, and then cut the Falcon floor pan out of the coupe. And sitting them side by side, you can really see the difference. The Mustang floor pan is really strong, really rigid. Turns out it's only 6mm wider, so with the porta power we jack it apart a little bit and we do a trial fit. Using the Frantic crane, I'm just lifting her in and pretty much figure out what needs to be done. It's going to be a case of having to encapsulate the Falcon's sills and integrate them into the Mustang floor pan. In red is an original Falcon sill. The yellow is the sill panel from a Mustang floor pan which is going in, and blue, that's the new material. So that Z shape is an internal sill which is made out of 3mm cold rolled steel and folded into that shape with the returns. 25mm return on the top to go under the top of the Mustang sill. The bottom is a 40mm return the other way to go under the new exterior sill panel, which is obviously going to extend down further and hopefully going to be, reasonable shape. It has a slight curve, and then when it gets to the bottom it ducks under to be plug welded from the bottom. Having explained that, I jump right in and start plug welding these Z panels into position, ready for that floor pan to be lifted back in. While all this was going on, Ryan up at United Speed Shop in Newcastle was custom building me this beautiful Magnum front end, and what he's done is he's actually been able to integrate the big Brembo brakes from the Mustang GT into it, and so in order for that to go in, I'm going to have to be doing some modifications to the chassis rails and also doing some bracing from the chassis rails back to the A-pillar. So that's what we're going to jump into here.
This is where you want your 15mm in here?
Yeah.
So I'll give it a little hit there, I'll bring that down. That's good.
passenger side inside chassis rail. So with these plates joining the two chassis rails, the Mustang and the Falcon together, I was able to plug weld them in on all four sides, and then along each edge it's going to have a full weld which basically fuses the inner chassis rail to the outer plates. In other words, fuses the original Falcon chassis rail to these plates. So now these joiner plates are fused to the original chassis rails. It's just a matter of linishing them, making them all look nice and pretty, and then going on to the next part, which is going to be building the frame which braces the chassis rails back to the A-pillar. And this is how it looks later on once I've done all the sheet metal work. So next we jump into the IFFs. We've got the IFS installed and we do a trial fit of the engine. Now while it looks like those coilovers are super close to the chassis, I can assure you there is plenty of clearance, and also bearing in mind that this is with the suspension fully dropped. With the IRS, we've taken the IRS out of the Mustang donor cart and we've shortened the cage by 200mm and then shortened each axle by 100mm and been able to keep the original geometry of the suspension. I did this because I wanted to match the original track width of the Falcon and still be able to use deep dish wheels. In order to mount it, I have to build a subframe, so we end up fitting this thing several times so I can get my measurements and calculate what I need to do to build this subframe. Now that the subframe's finished, I make some fish plates and weld them to the inside of the chassis rails, ready for the subframe to mount to. And now I can install the subframe. Using the original bolts and bolt plugs from the Mustang, we bolt the IRS into the subframe. Guys, she's in, and I've got to say that I'm pretty pleased with it so far. I think it's looking pretty good. And what we might do is we'll have a bit of a look around. So I ended up doing some work on the wheel tub as well, because it was basically looking a bit ready, but yeah, this has come out alright. What I ended up doing is I felt that it would be a lot stronger if the tub actually met the frame, so I've just moved it 30mm, and if you look at it from behind, so I think that looks a lot better. This is how it would have looked. I would have had to have put a filler panel in between there, and I think that doing it this way, it's probably going to add more strength to the car, more rigidity, as the tub is connected directly to the chassis rail. So with that being done, I think it's time to see how it looks on its wheels. I didn't have a hoist in the workshop at this stage, so I actually ended up doing a lot of this work on a frame that I built, which you can see me pulling out here. And then we use a couple of Frenner cranes to lift it down. Man, that looks sick. I reckon that just looks sick. While all this was going on, Xavier had been down at the workshop helping me out with a few things. Right here you can see how he's fabricated the end of the door shell to accept the Mustang latching system, and he also did quite a bit of work helping me get the sills lined up, and also integrating late model Mustang mirrors into the door shells. Plus we also mounted some Aston Martin flush fit door handles. He really did a top job on that work. So these mirrors are not going to be everyone's cup of tea. You know, I know that, I realise that. A lot of you will be sort of thinking, you know, oh, Falcon Coupe's not meant to look like that. Well, I'm not trying to restore a Falcon Coupe. I'm trying to do something different. So it's a custom car, and you know, you customise stuff. So this is one of the things we're customising. But come around the front here and have a look at the actual shape and profile of it. So yeah. Actually, you know what we should do? Let's just go and take it and put it up against the car.
Yeah, handle to the mirror, everything's going to be symmetrical.
Yeah. So for those guys that are used to looking at, you know, the Falcon Coupes with all their original stuff, like, yeah, this may look, you know, wrong to you, but I think we're pretty happy with it because we feel that it, you know, it fits with the character of the car and is, you know, a modernised version of a Falcon Coupe.
Beautiful.
Okay, so these go in here like that and mount up nice and flush, and then they'll be painted body colour. So one of the things I really enjoyed was fabricating this boot floor panel. So normally obviously you have a fuel tank in this position, but I've decided to move the weight forward and have a fuel tank over the top of the IRS. So as you can see, first I start making a cardboard template. That is then transferred to the sheet metal and then cut off in the guillotine. I also needed to put a slight roll on the front of this panel, so all I could find was this old spreader bar laying in the yard, so I pretty much improvised and it turned out fine. Alright, so far it's going quite well. As you noticed, we had to make a tool to put that little roll in it because I don't have a roller, but actually it worked out fine if you have a look at it. She sits in there pretty good. And all I'm going to do now, I was sort of thinking, I'm sort of short of ideas of, you know, what to do with it. I can't stay blank, and I don't really just want to put some, you know, some straight runs with the bead roller in it. And then I looked at the boot and I thought maybe what I could do is use the bead roller and put like a reverse pattern of what's on the boot, you know. So I think I'll do that. So I make some templates and then transfer it to the boot panel, mark it all out, and then we start using the bead roller. So that's it. Now that it's made, I've got it sitting loosely in position, ready to be plug welded in, and I am really pleased with it. But it doesn't finish there. I've got to make a frame to fit in underneath the boot floor to give it extra support. So I'm going to go ahead and use this 25 by 25 box section, and I'm going to make it so that they actually fit in between the panels that I've rolled into the floor pan. So after linishing the plug welds, that's about it. It's prepped and then sealed up in epoxy primer, and here's how it looks from underneath. You can see all the major modifications. It looks so much different to a normal Falcon. So next I'm actually going to jump back in the build a little bit and talk about the bonnet. So we didn't use an XB Falcon bonnet. I actually chose a 73-74 Mach 1 Mustang bonnet because I wanted a bonnet that would go all the way to the windscreen and have that swept up effect, so that I was able to cover all of the wiper mechanisms and the 2016 Mustang cowl. So went ahead and did that, and as you can see there were some major modifications. Had to shorten it, also had to make it wider at the front. Once those modifications were finished, I went ahead and strengthened the front part of the bonnet so that I could mount hinges on the front of it and have it tilting forward. The reason was because there was simply no way of hinging it at the back with the Mustang cowl and everything else that was going to be in the way. So it just seemed to be a much better option to go ahead with a forward tilting bonnet.
Snow, red sky, reach up for so high, blue eyes, fake cry, beware of the fox tonight. rain. My bloody frozen.
That's it.
Oh, it wasn't on record.
So it is as I had it planned before, with these very slimline hinges, and the reason I went with such a slim hinge was so that it actually fitted in, the whole thing disappeared in front of the lip of the bonnet, or the front nose of the bonnet. And with everything else I was trying, I just couldn't get it to fit, you know, with everything. Like say you've got, you know, the GS-GT grille with the twin headlights, that takes up a fair bit of space. And then the edge of the bonnet just clearing the grille when you open it. Anyway, long story short, I had to go with a slim hinge. So yeah, okay, so this part here is going to go up here on the bonnet somehow, and then she comes down and... So as you can see, this bonnet went through a lot of stages, but the final iteration is here, where I've used dual gas struts. The reason is that with the single strut it was a little bit hard to lift for the first stage of the tilt. So the second strut, because it's angled in a slightly different direction, it actually adds lift to the bonnet, so you can now lift it basically with one finger. So I've gone with a twin latching system from a Jaguar XK8 or X100, and you can see here that I've fabricated up a cover to go over them. And now that all those modifications are completed, it's time for the most important step of all, to go off to the engineers and have the torsion beam test done.
Was 362 kilos. That results with a 2 meter moment arm, 7,103 Newton meters. So that's what we applied to the car in both tests. So you can see the drastic improvement, which is this orange line here. So a lot of this, that area in there, so from firewall back, is where the Mustang floor pan now resides.
Yeah.
So that's good to see that it's one thing to modify a car for the sake of modifying it, but it's actually made an improvement here.
So it's a stronger car.
It's a stronger car. I'm not sure if we noted before that you can visually see inside. I mean, just the size of the tunnel on the Mustang floor pan must make a significant difference, definitely to the beaming test.
Oh yeah.
So that's really good to see that, yes, we've made a modification to the rear rails and it's actually improved the characteristics of it. So overall, we've actually improved torsional rigidity of this thing by 60%. So
60%.
overall, we've got 0.2 degree of twist. So really, really good, really happy with that.
Cool.
We'll just quickly go to the
beaming test,
beaming test, which is a relatively basic test. We load the car up with the equivalent of 65 kilos per occupant plus 15 kilos per occupant of luggage. So you can see here, again, huge. I personally think two things. So the Mustang floor pan with that real tall tunnel, I think helped a lot here, but also those sill panels that have been added to it. I mean, they're almost twice the height, and the original sill panel's still actually in there. Clearly we can see the results of that. So those sill panels plus that tunnel have built quite a stiff bridge over the moon. It's good, like I said, it's good to, you know, it's all well and good to modify a car, but you want to see the results. You don't want to modify it for the sake of modifying it.
100%.
So to actually see it, you know, see it with your own eyes.
See it in a graph. The figures don't lie.
It's easy for everybody to look at that and see the difference. It's a visual. You don't need to be technically minded. It's there in front of you, and over the moon. Actually,
Awesome.
really happy.
No, awesome. Well, thanks very much, Con. I really appreciate it.
No problem.
It's been a good day. Really high note to end the day on. Came here, you know, for the testing. I knew it would be stronger than it was originally, but to be honest, a 60% improvement on stock. That's awesome. Can't say better than that. So thanks again to Con at Carcraft Engineering. So that pretty much brings us up to where we are now, guys. Obviously there's a ton of things that were missed out, but I think I got the major modifications. And one thing though that I was going to touch on was the windscreen. So with the windscreen, we ended up going for a sedan windscreen, which is actually 50mm taller. But we used it because, well, for two reasons basically. I wanted to be able to come down behind the bonnet with the screen, and I also needed to be able to have something long enough which would come down and match where the Mustang plenum comes to. So in doing that, we ended up with a gap on the side of the screens, and so because of that I've ended up widening these pillars here, which I think actually complements the look of the car. So. And obviously then we've shaved the gutters. Apart from that, things to do, just minor things. I'm probably going to just do a little bit of work on the bottom of the quarter panel there. I'll probably lower it down a bit so that we don't have a pinch weld. And I'm going to be probably making a panel to go underneath the bumper. I won't be using the original Falcon one, it'll just be slightly different. Another thing that I'll probably do is something on the front, whether it's a spoiler or whether I change that panel or not sure. But anyway, for now, we're all caught up to date. Next is all of that. So yes, all of this wiring has to go in. Obviously the Coyote, the 6-speed, we've got all of this gear, and seats, dashboard, etc. But that's all for the next video. So guys, I hope that you enjoyed the video, and I appreciate you all watching and giving your comments. Please go ahead and subscribe if you haven't already, and hit your notification buttons. And I'm going to be trying my best to try to make better quality videos. It's all basically a learning curve. The more you do, I guess, the better you get if you try. So anyway, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.